into Aleppo at the beginning of November. It was me, Mustafa the fixer, and Jim and John. We were really looking at how the front lines looked in the city. It had become a very entrenched war in which a sort of stalemate on many fronts.
Problem.
Are we going back the same way?
No. يا شباب. بدنا نرجع.
And then I started having issues with my camera and had to return to Istanbul. So Jim and John wanted to continue on to Idlib, where they also wanted to look at, the front lines, the fighting, and also John had to finish his story on his first kidnapping. So I decided to go back to Istanbul for that week, and they were in Idlib.
We've taken all the back roads. The driver here has been absolutely brilliant. Phoning ahead to see if there are checkpoints, going really slowly around bends in the road to see if there was anything unexpected there. Past one old army, a Syrian army checkpoint.
At that point, I think a lot of journalists just shrugged their shoulders in terms of, well, we weren't really afraid of the bombs and the bullets, but we started to get worried about the kidnappings because of how many foreign fighters were there. Because there hadn't been very many kidnappings at that time, there was this false sense of security and just this idea that, we could still freely travel inside. But I think when we started seeing more foreign fighters there and people being threatened and some people being kidnapped, but for a few days at a time, that's when the, fear started to creep in about abductions.
Nicole was waiting for us to cross to Turkey. She speak with James, and James told her we are coming now to cross the border. Then she called me. She asked me what's happened, Mustafa. Where are you? I'm waiting for you. I told her they took James and John, and we don't know where they are right now, and we are looking for them.
There were no demands. There had been no ransom calls. At least when someone calls for ransom, you know what they want, and you know that there may be a way of solving this. But when people are just disappearing for months and months and months with no news, it's very scary.
The whole situation kind of fell on me. It felt that there was this huge responsibility for Jim and John's lives, and their lives were in my hands, because if I'd gotten a call from the captors, I wondered, what would I do? What would I do? Because of the nature of how they were abducted and Mustafa not being sure of who exactly the people were, some of them were disguised, the 4 gunmen, it just seemed like, where do we start from? You really start from a blank slate. It could have been that they were taken by a group that was just interested in selling them for money, or by a criminal gang that was going to pass them on to another group. We thought that maybe Islamist groups were responsible for either monetary reasons or political agenda, or it could have been that they were taken by Shiite groups that were interested in selling them to the government that would have imprisoned them.
The fog of war is happening there, like misinformation everywhere, I kind of stopped trying to put the jigsaw together, because Syria is such a patchwork of interest groups.
The first, 12 to 24 hours is really crucial. And so I think I jumped into this very systematic, practical mode. I created spider charts, and other journalists were helping me fill in certain gaps, and there was so many possibilities of who was responsible.
so many people. They told me, yes, we can help you and we can bring them, and we following them to until the end, and no one helped. Just they need money. Some people they told me how much you can pay for them to bring them. They need the money and blah blah blah, and they are liars.
Maybe they'd been taken by the government, or was it criminals? Was it Islamists? Was it rebel brigades with an agenda that they would only come out with later? So it was just really looking into a black hole and not knowing who was valid or not. The government didn't really get involved until about 2 weeks after their kidnapping. And even then, it wasn't really like they were going to take over. It was just trying to gather information from me and my sources. But the problem was that the people they sent to me seemed like junior officers and didn't seem particularly gung-ho about getting him home.
On the 22nd of November, they awoke at around 9 a.m. They went to the Storm Internet Cafe where James Foley Skyped Nicole Tung. They stayed about 25 minutes, then left the cafe in a taxi. Mustafa did not notice anybody following them. As they started to turn left onto the unpaved road, a silver Hyundai van drove up alongside them and then pulled in front of them. As the van was driving up, Mustafa heard John say, "Oh fuck, don't stop." The men approached the taxi shouting in Arabic. They were pointing their weapons and shouting, "Get down, get out." They held a Kalashnikov to Mustafa's head. He was made to tie John's hands. John said to Mustafa, "Please, help. Not again."
John Cantlay's story is very unique. Cantlay was kidnapped before that as well by this group, which was not part of the Islamic State yet. It was a jihadist group. So Cantlay was freed, and then when he came back to the United Kingdom, he was instrumental in a trial against one of the members of this group, which was a doctor who had gone from Britain to Syria in order to join this organization.
Were you a part of any of the groups that were operating in that area at the time?
I was not attached to any group. I was a doctor who was given protection by everyone, and for 5 days I treated him for his injuries. Now, the reasons for his injuries and what happened with him had nothing to do with me. The only part I had, the only role I had with John Cantlay and Jerome Molemans in 2012 was as a doctor attending to my patients.
Well, what became obvious was that people in Syria and also in the border areas of Turkey felt that these two guys had been arrested because of what John Cantlay told the police, which may be untrue, but that was the perception.
I was quite surprised how it could be that I saved two guys in a war zone, give them medical treatment, and then they get me arrested. But it turns out that these two witnesses never did give any evidence against me, nor did they even request for me to be arrested.
Were John and James targeted because of the story? I don't think they were targeted because of the story, but the fact that John by that time was a more or less well-known journalist. Basically, the risk for them was slightly higher than for just another journalist, I think.
Assad's forces are currently in Idlib, which is only 5 kilometers to our west. We've been trying to get into Idlib for a few days now, but apparently the roads are just there's no way, it's not secure, but we'll keep trying.